Thanks for joining. Yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Looks like we got about 10 people on. This is a topic I wanted to cover, and I'll give a little background on why and the history of it. First of all, I wanted to say that I want to give a trigger warning, not that we're going to get into um, a lot of survivor-centric like abuse topics, but we're gonna get into talking about how men receive signals and tend to dismiss them in a lot of cases, and compared to women signaling on risk threats, and I think that's probably an experience, especially for survivors, clearly, and probably really everybody. This has been an experience, and it can be it can dig up some tough feelings. I think that's the warning. Um, and this has been a hard conversation with me and my wife. So full disclosure that I think that's a big reason why I want to give the trigger warning is that this I think that men in your lives that haven't stepped up to threats, clearly been a problem in our community, and I think in general in the community, in society in general. So that's why I think this will make this a difficult topic for some, but I think it's also why it's a really important conversation. Okay, so the background on this, the reason why I wanted to do this topic. So when I don't know, about a month ago, the Rape Academy news came out. It was this horrific expose about uh just men, or I don't know, men, just people in general, but I'm assuming it was mostly men that were tuned in to um, just, I don't know, I don't really know exactly what it's about, but it's basically, sexual assault centric and violence against women, and basically forming a community around that idea. And it created a lot of women responding to it and just in horror, and some men wrote about it, but generally there was a lot of women wrote about that and just horrified. And also there was a lot of it re-upped the, all men versus not all men debate when it comes to violence against women. And as I consumed that, like my initial reaction was like, that's not me. These are broken men. I don't relate to them. I don't know what drives them, their propensity or interest in violence against women. Like it just doesn't make sense to me at all. And so that's where I would push back, like I'm not part of that demographic. But there was, as I was reading what women wrote about it, I realized, so there's something that I really couldn't understand, and it kind of clicked for me why what one of the points about yes, all men was about, and that was that we're all as a demographic, we're all potentially threats if we're unknown. And the analogy that I wrote about, and I actually wrote a Substack article, I never published it, mainly because my wife didn't react well to it. Maybe I'll eventually get it to the point where it could be published. But that gist of it was that just kind of a mea culpa that, oh, I understand some of the reasons, certainly lots more that I don't understand. But one of the reasons is that I navigate the world as a man very differently than women do. Um, and that is that there's not a lot of threats, like more like just navigating the world as an apex predator. And, there's threats, but they're relatively infrequent. And I just kind of assumed that was generally, to a large degree, the way women navigate society. And that's just not the case. And I can't even really relate and understand it. But the analogy that kind of made sense to me was that of a pit bull. Like when I encounter a pit bull that I don't know, like they have a reputation where they can either be amazing dogs or they can be, if they've had bad treatment or bad training, they can be really vicious. And my chance against a pit bull is not great especially if it's unexpected. And um, the the I had a friend that had a Cane Corso. I don't know if you know that kind of dog.
I do.
They are intimidating. they're big
Yeah.
dog. Their head's like the size of a human, and he was just hard to read. Like I never had any problem with him, but if I ever ran into him without my friend there, I was nervous. It's like I don't know. Like he had a docked tail, so you couldn't tell if he's wagging. There was no
Yeah.
signals, and like I was just like, is that really how women have to navigate the world with an unknown man? Like I don't, like you, like literally, if things go sideways with that dog, I didn't have much of a chance. Like
Right.
he was going to take me out, and it was just kind of alarming. Like that's just brutal to have to navigate the world if that's the way men are perceived. And now, obviously, not all men, but unknown men, right? Like I don't know, and I think especially people that don't give off good signals or they like to be mysterious, like kind of starts to feel like, wow, that I can understand that.
Right. So I'll
Yeah.
piggyback on the dog analogy because it's really interesting. We have a golden doodle at home, this little furry thing that isn't exactly intimidating, right? My brother and sister live in a neighborhood that has a golden doodle that's bitten like five people.
Mm.
And when you look at it, you're like, oh, there's a sweet dog. I look at that dog and I see my dog and I'm like, oh, that's a friendly dog. It's fine. But yet the golden doodle is not a pit bull. It doesn't have the stigma of that dog, right? The fear, and there are good pit bulls. Depends. But the point that I guess when you were telling that, it's like, yeah, it's easy to see the predator and recognize a predator for me. But then I see this golden doodle and I'm like, oh, there's a sweet little pup, right? And then it's coming out all teeth and anger, right? So like it's a time where I can recognize, oh yeah, not all these dogs are the same. I have a little angel at home, right? But like there's dogs that there's people that appear sweet because it's who we think we see or it's who we think we're familiar with, and yet they they cannot be all that sweet to somebody that is lesser. I've walked past this house where this dog is, and I've never been attacked, but women and children ironically, have been attacked out of this house with this dog.
Mm.
So, like, there is a thing where there seems to be more respect given to from like in this story to the men walking by that it's like I'm not going to mess with that, but it sees a different it sees a more vulnerable person possibly
Or
maybe
yeah, or just senses not
right
maybe
right.
fear or whatever. Yeah.
So does
Um,
that transfer to humans? I kind of think probably so to our to the human side.
yeah. So where we're going with this, where I wanted to go with this
Sorry. Yeah.
analogy,
Yeah.
and I don't know if it's a great analogy, but it made sense to me to some degree, is that because we navigate as men the world differently than women do, um, the risk threats that we sense, we can't relate to and I think that's where there can be a big disconnect where somebody, our partner for instance, can flag on somebody like this person doesn't seem safe,
Mhm.
and we're like, yeah, okay, what's the problem? Like why, like why are you judging them as unsafe? Like it just feels like they didn't do anything. They have no history that we know of. Like it feels like, stereotype or what's going on there. We
Mhm.
can be really dismissive that this person's unsafe. And then we think our risk assessment versus say our partners is kind of like it's a 50-50. You're like, well, okay, let's just kind of weigh this out. And it was kind of an aha moment, like, no, I don't actually relate to risk. Like I don't know what a threat looks like. I haven't experienced threats. And so I don't have the knowledge to understand where they're coming from, what they're sensing, what are they detecting, what are the experiences behind that, or what's just the gut behind that. And so how I feel about it, it's not actually important because I don't have the capacity
Mhm.
to actually accurately assess that. Like the example I had this is we had somebody that we went to meeting with where my wife flagged on this person, and um, I really pushed back. I was like, I like this guy. I don't get it. Like why, I really was, and it was, I came pretty aggressive. Like no, don't. don't make this person out to be something that could be harmful. This is a nice guy. And and then later, like there was never anything that was like proven as problematic, but I started to recognize, oh, I see where she's coming from. Like there's some flags here. And I had to really do a 180. Like, okay, yeah, we're gonna handle this very differently, because not that this person was necessarily a threat, but the signals were there, and that's where the line needed to be drawn. It wasn't like, well, let's wait till something actually happens, that we draw a
There you
line.
go.
Let's actually just tune into those signals and acknowledge that they're real. Like one of the things that I realize is there's no vibes are just a feeling. Like it's not like they're ever going to come with facts. They're a sense from history of their experience, and they may or may not be accurate, but they come from something. They're not just they're not fact based. They're a sense, a human sense based, and
Right.
so if you push on them, you're not going to get facts. You're going to get, well, there's no more to it. It's just the way I feel. I don't feel safe.
Intuition. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we're a fact-based people. Obviously, we need facts to make decisions overall. Like that's our desire. But I think when you get to a point, it seems like when you get to a point when the only way to make any decision is by facts and not out of respecting what other people are feeling, like the intuition of others does matter. Um, anyway, I don't know. There's a lot of different nature scenarios that show us how intuition and how gut instinct plays into survival for like wildlife. I mean, like I, anyway, I haven't done research on this, but I've just sat in nature and watched. And I used to deer hunt, and you'd line up on a deer, and they would drop right before you let go the arrow. And like I made no noise, but there was something that was telling them there's danger near, and they're paying attention to it. So I think part of it is that when people have a gut feeling or a flag on something, that me going as the husband or the dad or the brother or whatever I am to that person being like, nah, you're good, because it doesn't seem to affect me. Like that's it's a pretty closed off way where that deer is going duck, duck, duck. I
Yeah.
don't know. That's my image in my head that seems like I'm ignoring it.
Well, and that is probably a case where he'd been shot at before, and there was something that reminded him of that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's where that intuition comes from. There was a situation where I was with my family, and it was a really good illustrate. I think it's a good illustration where I was with my two daughters, and we were on a plane, and we had two seats, me and my wife, and then they had two seats right behind us. And the person that ended up sitting next to our daughters, my wife just flagged on him, and and she wanted me to just turn around, acknowledge, hey, and just like introduce myself, and just to make him aware I'm here, and just to get in front of it, and I reacted not well to that. I was like, why would I do that? Like I'm obviously here. Um, I can, I've been talking to my daughters. Um, and like I feel like I'm accusing him of being a problem. I'm not sensing he's a problem. Uh, and it was this big debate of where to draw the line because for her, it's like, yeah, he hasn't done anything, but I'm flagging, and here's a preventative step you can do, and then it lowers the risk of anything actually happening.
Mhm.
Whereas for me, I was like, well, I don't know what to say, and I feel like I'm accusing him, and like it just was this awkward discussion, and really had a hard time come to terms. Like it was a hard conversation with him, and for a long time, it's been like, wow, I've really have to grapple with like where do you draw the line when there is threats? Like um if it's obvious, like we want it to be obvious, like well, I'm not judging this person as a problematic, and and where she was like, oh, I'm sensing he could be a problem, and now's the time to take action. It's not to wait till something bad happens. It's to do it, take action now to
Hmm.
preventative action. And it would that's a hard thing. I think the um yeah, like that. I was really curious about the social dynamics of it, in my head of I almost felt like I was deferring to a man code somehow, like, hey, you
Right.
coming at me, bro, kind of thing.
So I think my gut is that your resistance to it probably was tied to our upbringing as well, where you don't even if it's not like you're turning around going, "Hey, I'm watching you." Like, hey, bro, don't like you're not doing that. But even just a, "Hey, to my daughters, just want to let you know I'm right here if you need anything at all." But like that's awkward because it
Mhm.
could be construed like what your words were. It could be he might have thought I was accusing him, and
Yeah.
we have been hyper focused and maybe extremely afraid of anything that seems accusatory. Um, and at least in my upbringing, I can't speak for you, but I'm guessing,
Mhm.
even though we're on different sides of the country, there are some similarities to how we were raised, right? So I think there's part of that. I flew on a my family just went to Norway, and we were on a plane, and actually I subconsciously took the middle seat next to the person. Like we had a whole row, but there was one person next to us. And I'm like, it's kind of like the guy walking on the edge of the sidewalk and the girl walking inside, right? It's the old, the chivalry thing to do. And I, I subconsciously took that seat next to the dude on the window. And I didn't really want to sit next to him, to be honest. But like I was like, well, I don't want my daughter to go there.
Yeah.
That would make me feel. I mean, we had choices where we could sit, but anyway. So, but I think there's an innate Papa Bear in a way, but at the same time, we're still walking that line, and different personalities are different, but we walk a line of not wanting to ruffle feathers of even strangers we don't know, which runs the risk of doing it of potentially, like if your wife is flagging on it, which she was, like it runs the risk of potentially even just an inappropriate hand touch, right? Like just that makes your daughter uncomfortable. It's funny how I'm not trying to make you feel bad. It's just I think it's amazing how we tend to try to find the Bruce Lee, be like water, to like find the easiest route to
Mhm.
get through something without ruffling feathers. I've done it all the time, so you're not alone.
Yeah, and we were talking before, before the call, our attitude is like, well, if anybody touches my daughter, like things are gonna
Yeah,
get ugly. Like that's our attitude. It's like, well, it's not gonna happen. If it does, something does happen, I'm gonna throw hands. But it's just kind of in reality, it's a silly way to look at it because it's like, okay, well, that's already too late. And B, what are you going to go to jail for, like, for assaulting somebody, like that's already
right.
another problem of like, so like, it's just kind of like, that's more of our instincts, but
Yeah,
it doesn't actually work out very well in practice to
right.
not be more proactive.
Hmm. Hmm.
I wanted to cover something. We didn't talk about this before, but it's on this topic of another angle of the all men versus not all men when it comes to kind of this, you know, the attitudes of society about violence towards women. And I was reminded of our president when he was, I think it was his first campaign. There's a video that was Access Hollywood video, I think, and it was a famous video where it was the locker room talk, right? And so I don't want to really get
Hmm.
into
Hmm.
that aspect specifically, but the term locker room talk is a really interesting one. And what that whole phrase was dismissed as like, well, this is what guys say when they're around each other and there's no women
Right.
present. And that was um and so one of the key points is like, okay, well, why is it okay if there are no women present to talk about violence against women? and that's where the allyship is, and it's kind of one that's really made me rethink some things too, where it's like, well, okay, how often have I been around a joke made about, and that included violence against women, and not been like, hey, that's not cool, just let it slide, right? And
Or worse yet, laughed at it.
yeah, yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, yeah, fully there. Yeah.
And it's like you realize, in those scenarios, it's like you don't think they're serious. It's just kind of maybe or whatever, like or maybe. But the problem is that that communicates that you were fine with it, or they can be received with it.
Hmm.
And I
Yep.
think that's one of those parts of the yes all men argument is that if you're not representing in those conversations two people that are projecting that this violence is okay, this culture of violence is okay, then you're not an ally. You're complicit in them people that actually do follow through. That we're all on board with this, and I think it's really fascinating. As I've thought about this, I realize I am probably more likely to speak up when somebody's saying something racist than sexist. And it's fascinating that why is that? Like
Mm.
what is that about? And I think part of it is that you were in a situation. You're heading up. Okay. Hey, do you have your phone? Okay. Sorry, my daughter's just going to the store with her friends. Um,
All good.
uh, And sorry, where was it on that? So like are why am I more likely to speak up? Well, I think it's because of kind of the guy code. Like you don't want to be
Yeah.
one that's be seen as politically correct or the buzzkill. Like
Sensitive.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's this weird dynamic with that where it's like, no, that's not cool, and someone's like, well, maybe I'll just not hang out with those people anymore. That might be more likely. My reaction is like, these people clearly have their values versus being confrontational, saying, hey, like these attitudes are part of the problem, and
Right.
you may think it's funny or whatever, and you don't think it's serious. Hopefully that's the case, but in reality, I don't know. I don't know how how this actually plays out for you, and that's those kind of conversations. And one interesting, really interesting thing about that is that here all these women are writing about this rape academy and like trying to communicate, but the men that really need to hear it don't listen to women.
Yep.
And so it's like if there are allies that actually step up and say, "Hey, this is not cool," among the men that they actually respect and listen to, nothing changes.
Right. And I don't actually think it's that different from the last several years for us.
Hmm.
Like speaking out about the things that were going on in the church were actually was really hard. And it is hard for people. That's why so many I think why so many men don't speak out is because it's difficult to be open and vulnerable
Hmm.
because you open yourself up for a lot of things. So, like, I think it's in a similar vein where if I'm with a group of guys and somebody makes an off-color joke or something that is derogatory towards a person, and I giggle along with it, maybe out of nervousness, maybe out of just a way that I want to, worse yet, maybe I find it's funny and I need to examine that. But like I think that's a similar thing. We're speaking up to that group. There's pressure that could come back. There's danger of being kicked out of the group,
Yeah.
right? Like and we are pack animals, even though we're predatory and by nature in a way. Like as humans, that's our uh, I don't know. I feel like there's kind of there's a fear of not fitting in. We all still have a deep desire to fit in,
Yeah.
and
Well,
when good.
I say it wasn't just a desire, it was taught. That's what you're supposed to do.
No, right. Exactly. And then that becomes our MO on how we do everything and the decisions we make and what we tolerate and all these things come out of it. And then, well, it's not that big a deal because nobody got hurt, right? Like nobody by talking about by letting somebody or laughing at something or letting a thing be said. Oop, did I lose you?
No, I'm still here. I've got
Oh,
you.
oh, my screen just went away. Sorry. Um, Yeah, but allowing things without any pushback to be said, I think creates a situation that makes it okay. Okay, right? To other people's perception, they think it's okay. And so the guts to stand up is something that is really it's hard. But
Yeah, so Melanie, just contributed in the chat, kind of a point, really interesting point. It's a good segue. She said it's interesting to realize that men have these convictions to take out another man for touching a daughter, for instance. But if it's a professing predator, it's acceptable to just take it to a brother worker versus the outrage and the reaction. And I absolutely think that's true. I think the conditioning neuters kind of men's instinct that we've seen that play out.
yes,
Like,
yes,
you've seen some where they have been, or like, no, too bad, and like case like Ruben Mata, where the family actually took him to court and put him in prison. Where other times the family agreed to not press charges, and then the predators kept victimizing other people. And
hmm
I think the one of the points on that is, even beyond that point, just even overriding our instincts, the social proof that workers get, or like the social acceptance, benefit of the doubt, is super dangerous when it comes to predators, because, and this has played out for me. We were talking before. I remember flagging on Leslie White first time I met him, and I flagged on Kenyon Coleman first time I met him. And then after a while, like, everybody loved him. So apparently my instincts are way off. Like, this person is great. I don't know what was wrong with my first instinct on them, but clearly they're great. And then later, oh, clearly the instincts had reason for them. And I don't really know what my instincts with both those men were. I think in some ways it was probably not that they were predators. It was probably that they didn't fit into the social norms of a lot of workers. Like, they just had a different, like, they weren't humble. I think it's maybe like that
it's an attitude. Yeah,
they didn't carry the same kind of humility that a lot of workers carry. And so it may be a sense that this person kind of plays by their own rules. Like, they're not really fitting into the social norms of the culture of the group. And that's maybe what I was flagging on. But in any case, it was overridden. Like, I flagged that something's not right here. And then I was overridden. I was like, yeah, I thought these were great people after that, after they had time to really settle in and make their case. So, like, and I think most of that had to do with the people advocating that they were good people, and I should, really think they're great. And I think that's what's particularly dangerous, and what's made this CSA crisis in the community so rampant, is that social proof, uh, the community, advocating that these are safe people when they're not, causes people to go against their instincts, where their instincts probably are saying, no, this doesn't seem like a safe person.
right, right. Yeah, yeah, and I think like I think it's super interesting. Like the first instinct you had was like, "Ooh, no, I don't like not my cup of tea," right? And then over time, the I can see how this happens, and I've always I was a very tolerant professing person because I would just take any worker as perfectly gold, right? Like
Mhm.
I didn't have that. I never even had that. And I'm like now I look back and I'm like, well, I should have probably had that some. But but the point being like the lessons that we've been taught, and I'm not offloading responsibility here, but the lessons that we've been taught and that the workers were to be trusted without question.
Mhm.
And that brings us to in the fellowship side of things, that brings us to this problem. And then it spills outside of that too for us too, because like then we're wanting to give the benefit of the doubt to everybody. It's not that we're going out there going, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad to every single person we go by, but
Mhm.
we have to engage our common senses and say, and in reality, which this is why I feel so inept to have this conversation, probably. I think we both are on the same page on this, where it's like, I don't understand what my wife and my daughter and my friends and my sister and all what they've had to, what they feel. because
Hmm.
like you started with the how you open, like it's not been my experience to go around having a lot of concern about the people that are around me.
Hmm.
I mean, I probably should legitimately, but it's just not my, it's not my DNA.
Well, it's not. I mean, my pushback on that is I don't like to. I feel like in general, I want to navigate life feeling like there's threats all around. It's just not
Yeah,
an enjoyable
right.
way to navigate life. And it's
Correct.
like, but then, the response for women are like, well, it must be nice because I don't have that luxury. I
There you
have to
go.
navigate the world that way. And so the lesson learned to me is like, oh, okay, so where do we go from there? Like, how do we then tune into their sense of vulnerability and react in a way that helps kind of remedy the threats, reduce some of the sense of threat. And the answer is pretty simple: just listen and
Yeah.
ask what they want you to do about it. Like how can I can I react that will make you feel more comfortable with this situation, whether it's removing us out of the situation, or there might be a confrontation, or there might just be some kind of signal that, hey, I'm paying attention. What is that? And I think for most cases, the women are going to be able to have a ready answer for that. Like, this is what I want you to do. And the problem has not been that they haven't said it. It's a problem as I've pushed back. It's like, is that really necessary?
Well, maybe this might be harsh and I'm probably beating ourselves up, but which we probably deserve. Sorry, I'm lumping you into my problem here. But like maybe it's that we haven't respected their fear.
Hmm.
Like maybe we're like you're fine, right? And I mean that's a I guess because I don't feel it doesn't mean that they don't feel it. Sorry, we got a house full of kids, so if you see anybody in the background. Um, no, but like I think it's needed for me to realize like we were walking into a Cincinnati Reds a baseball game a couple months ago, about a month ago, and bunch of people around, and all of a sudden I realized Tara and Leah, my wife and my daughter, are both smashed on my sides. Like we're walking in the family in, right? And until you actually leading up to this call, you're like, think of a couple stories that might tie to times when you didn't realize. Like I'm thinking back on that, and I don't know why that came to mind, but I'm realizing there was a lot of people pushing around, and like I'm just walking, right? Like I'm on a mission to get to our seats, and they're like bringing in close. Not that I'm so tough and helpful on that, but like I feel like maybe there was something going on that I didn't even see that I was kind of oblivious to that they felt that they needed to be close. Now, I wouldn't cross a lot. A lot of women are strong enough to handle a lot of problems, but so I'm not saying that men have to protect women every step of the way. Um, but there is I think it is our a thing where like my wife and daughter came to me to be close to me to get through that crowd. I, Potentially that's a time when you know my oblivion didn't even know, and I'm just like, yeah, my ladies want to be close to me. Yeah, this is great. And they were feeling something more than I was feeling.
Yeah, I think yeah, that's a great thing where you don't want to project like, you know, I, I we live in 200 years ago where we got threats around us all the time, and I'm going to kill the bear that comes at our camp. Hopefully you advance past that. On the other hand, I think that's the response. Like, that's how being an ally. Like, they're asking you, they're signaling you, like, I want help with this situation, and I
Yeah.
feel better about my safety because you're here and that you're close by. I realize like just this oblivious to threats thing. We were in New York City last year, and we walked on a subway train. And I walk in, and I'm leading. I like jump through the door. I'm at I don't know if I was just didn't wait, or like nobody was jumping. It was just me and my family. And the car was empty. And I was in my head, I was like, sweet, we can pick any seat we want. And instead, my wife's like, something is wrong. This is New York City, and this is an empty train. Like, like is there a reason why everybody's scattered? Like it her instincts were far, and afterwards she's like, I don't think we should get on this train because like there's no reason why New York City has an empty car unless there's some real big problem. And I was like, wow, that's very true and not how I looked at it at all. And
Yeah.
and clearly like I'm just as oblivious like that's a real threat to me as well. Like if there's a reason why that car
Mhm.
is cleared out. And like they're just had so much more experience navigating threats that like we just don't have that signal. It's not there. At least for me,
Yeah.
it's there.
Yeah. 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 It's maybe in the wild we wouldn't last very long, Steve.
Probably true.
Yeah, it's interesting, and uh, full circle. Though I think the point that from from your stories and the things that we both talking about here is that like respecting the fact that they have concern or fear of some sort that I'm not seeing, that you're not seeing, that that probably a lot of men aren't seeing, that that are real to them, and that doesn't make it less than. Like that's their fears. And that's why it's so important to be aware of what's going on with them. And if they say something, for to be awake to it, right?
Yeah, my instinct is to look around. I don't see a problem. It's an irrational response. Like that's kind of the default reaction to
Yeah.
like if I don't sense it, I don't understand it, then it's not valid. And
Yeah.
that's super problematic and a very difficult thing to unlearn. Um, but I think that's been the lesson. And it's like, okay, yeah, that doesn't matter if I think it's valid or not. It's an
Yeah.
instinct that's triggered as a signal, and not heeding those signals in the past for them has created real escalation of risk. And that's obviously I don't want that. So I just tune in, not
I,
dismiss.
yeah. I don't mean to make this keep coming back to the to the CSA church stuff, but like there's a lot of connections there for me. It's the answer when somebody hears about an allegation and is like, I never saw that.
Yeah.
It's the same response, except we're giving it to a different situation, to our spouses or our kids, maybe. But like it's really like just because you didn't see it doesn't mean there's not a thing. A and B, that just because it was never obvious to you doesn't mean it didn't happen. And and that there's not a reason for concern. And uh, anyway, I think there's a very easy, because we maybe because we don't want to see danger, we don't see danger sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
it's willful ignorance. Um, I don't know. I maybe I overcompensate. I watched some MMA, so I think I can do anything, and therefore I'm the toughest man in the world, but I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I realize if things do get physical, I'm probably it's gotten to a point where it's a bad outcome for me as well.
Yeah, right, right, right. Yeah.
Um,
So,
so Melanie raised another really interesting point. I maybe dig into this a little bit. It's the church's demanning of men by brother and sister workers, one of the most dangerous programming within the system that makes it for husbands and fathers to stand down and not protect their own. And I felt that way from early on in the crisis. Like, where are all the men standing up saying, this is horrific? Like, these are our children that have been used. Maybe not mine personally, but the community's children. And that's our job. Like
mm,
just from a basic primal instinct, I was shocked to see how few of my peers um were standing up saying, hey, this is cannot stand
yeah.
and I don't really know like I got some of that realize where some of that program coming from where it's like you fit in and you have a right spirit about things and you defer to the workers judgment and so like I understand like the programming does get cause people to override their instincts but I
Hmm.
don't really get it because that's not how I reacted and it's not how you reacted. It was like, no, my primal instincts are more important than fitting in. But that hasn't been the common response.
No, no. I I probably ruffled a bunch of feathers up front early on in this whole thing because I was like I was just going to people like, where are you at? What, like they would say things to me in private and then would just be really quiet after that and like not, and I'm like, what's going on? Because you have a voice and people value your voice and you have respect in the society, in the system. And your voice would mean something. And yet there was not. And I mean, I guess I don't think Melanie's wrong that the demanning or the bringing down anything that is strong statements by men has, I mean, I got some pretty rough emails from from people when I'm speaking out and kind of trying to get me to shut up, right? And if I cared a lot, I would probably have shut up. But
Well, I feel like that has been a difference between prioritizing upwards versus prioritizing downwards. I wrote about some of this a while back, I think on the X2 by 2 community group. But if you are prioritizing down, I'm protecting my children, that's the paramount priority, and I'm going to act accordingly. And that's how
okay.
we largely navigated kind of the crisis information. Whereas it seems that
Mhm.
others have managed up. Like my place in the community is more important. So
Yeah,
I have to
gotcha.
prioritize that and my acceptance in the community and my status community. I don't think they think in those terms, but I think you feel it. Like this is part of my identity. This is where I get respect. This is where I have meaning. Like those are delicate things for men and give them a lot of sense of their well-being. And so that it's not like they're thinking I'm deprioritizing my children, but I'm trying to balance these things. And the way it comes across publicly is my children are less important than my place and status in the community. And I get it. I can understand it. I can get it logically. I can't get it emotionally. Like it just makes no
Right,
sense.
right. Yeah, yeah. I no, that is 100%. I think is right. And the message that sends to not only myself, like we respond to our the inner voice, like so if we're thinking our priority is the place, the meeting in our home, and the workers coming and being known to be an open family to the kingdom.
Mhm.
Um, like that is a thing. If that's what our focus is, then subconsciously our kids are getting a different message.
Yeah.
So they're getting the downwards, right? Like they're not the important part. Um, so yeah, I think that has damage on multiple ways, but that from taking the the ability of the men um to stand up and vocalize their concerns and their anger and their frustrations. Um, yeah, it's unfortunately we've been trained up to be and encouraged to be looking upward.
Yeah, managing up. Yeah, I realized one of the things that was the thing I thought about the most when the news came out and I was evaluating what I would do. Like, well, how am I going to respond to this? And one of the things that I kept coming back to, and it just was a nagging concern, is that whatever I do is going to be critiqued by my children when they become of age. And they're going to have
Mm,
access to all the information that I have access to now, and plus probably lots more, certainly lots more by then. And they're going to judge me of like, how did you behave? How did you prioritize my safety? Um, in the face of all this
mhm.
information and clear, obvious threats. And I knew that that conversation would go really poorly or could go well enough, depending on how I acted at that point. Now, not, when they came
Yeah,
of age and learned all this stuff. And so a lot of my actions were managing to that outcome. And I feel like a lot of people either aren't thinking about that or it's not a priority because that's going to come home to roost. Like, yes, you're managing people reacting to your decisions now, real time, adults in the community. But if you want a relationship with your children in the future, you have to consider those things too.
100%. 100%. Yeah. And You're a way deeper thinker than I am, Steve, because I didn't even go there. I was just like so outraged at like what I saw and how this was happening that I didn't even think about down the road. But no, that well, I feel not that I was looking for self-validation, but thank you. I feel like I can have a conversation with my kids later on and not be embarrassed about it.
Yeah.
That's good. I mean, I'll take that. It's a victory.
I think clearly by your actions you knew it was going to matter. It's kind of how it
Yeah.
was eventually, right? Like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah, that's
So, so I have a question. I actually reached out to a mutual friend of ours before this and asked her for a couple things that would be um, maybe points that we should talk about. And one of the things she mentioned was two things that I thought were interesting. It would be kind of interesting. It might be a little off the topic of where we're at, but like women being able to or being told to smile, right? Like this is and this is more about like why aren't men told to smile, but women are told to
yeah,
smile, like and thankfully I've thought back and I've like when she said that I was like I don't think I've ever done that. And I've taken kind of inventory and I'm like, I don't think I have. But that's a real thing. I've heard it.
yeah,
And then the other thing is if a woman is very friendly and like gets close to people and not that they're flirty, but if they don't smile enough, they're angry.
yeah,
And like these are things where it's a and this is kind of a sex the difference between the sexes a little bit where like we somehow can walk out of the house looking like this and it's okay and there's this other expectation that is different that but it plays into some of this like there's this judgment made that these people should this 50% of the population should act this way and the dudes can do whatever they want
right.
essentially.
So
If that's
there's
too far off the scope, you just shut me down,
no.
but I thought it was interesting because it did there was ties there for me.
There is so many this conversation go all kinds of directions, but I there's a movie that's out called Ladies First that plays this out brilliantly. It's Sacha Baron Cohen, which is not for everybody. No, I don't really his stuff is too cringy for me generally, although but I have enjoyed this movie. Um, and it what happens in the movie is society flips kind of magically. As you can do in movies where it's always been women in places of authority, and it's a super misogynistic society flip. So it starts out Sasha's a very wealthy, super sexist person, which he plays very well, and then it flips, and he's in things like he's in the room where he's the only man, and his voice is being ignored, and he's getting just the opposite treatment, and it's some of it's funny, some of it's really like well written, and you're like, wow, and like there'll be billboards of super men being objectified on billboards, things like that. And like you just don't see it. And it's shocking. Like, what in the world? But it's so normalized when it's done to women that you don't even
Hmm.
think about it, right? Like it does a brilliant job of really raising some of those questions. And just kind of in terms of listening to women, like I was in a training, this was a few years ago, corporate training. And in my job, I'm a product manager, there was maybe 25% of our group was women. And we had this exercise where we were asked to um, do active listening, part exercise of active listening. And so we
Hmm.
had two people pair up, and one person would talk, and they were supposed to talk for 2 straight minutes, and the other person was just supposed to listen, not just listen, don't give any feedback, don't acknowledge, just focus and listen to and take in what the person's saying. Every one of the women in that group, I think there was five of them. After we did this, and we were asking how it went, and they said none of them made it past 30 seconds. They all just automatically stopped before they got to 30 seconds. And we asked, well, why didn't you fill out the full 2 minutes? She's like, I've never experienced talking for that long without being interrupted. And it was like, oh my goodness, that is so horrible. Like that is just like it was undeniable. That's how their experience in that corporate environment was, and maybe in life in general. And it was like I've been interrupted plenty, but not like that. Like that's not my normal experience. And I was like, wow, this just it was horrifying. Like that's really how
That's
life is.
insane.
And in that movie, they played that out very well. And I think it plays into this whole thing. Like that's probably the same thing we're talking about. We're listening into like fears of safety, like
Yeah,
not listening. Like we don't know how to
right,
listen to women.
right. That's crazy. And yeah, yeah. I mean, there are so many. I don't know. It's easy to think back and be like, yeah, I was part of that. Like, and even if it's not interrupting, you know, it's doing this when somebody's talking, right? Yeah, uh-huh, yep.
Yeah.
It's not a good look. So, yeah, hmm, fascinating.
Yeah.
Um,
So
Good.
do you have a story? Yeah. So I was gonna. We're almost at the top of the hour. So Gail just mentioned she appreciates the topic and wants to what's the way to change how males think about other safety? And I don't know how to change that. I think if you are a
Mm,
someone's wife and your husband's not acknowledging your sense of safety, how do you navigate that? Like what has been the aha moment for me, I guess, and certainly like I'm absolutely on the learning curve here. Don't want to come across as some kind of like I'm not a Neanderthal anymore. This is very much a learning curve. But I think the first step for me was like to realize that my experience is so unrelatable that I can't come to the table and say, I need to understand this first before I'm going to validate your concern. Like
hmm
if that's the attitude I bring, it goes nowhere and it's not going to go well. I have to be like, okay, she's feeling threatened. I'm not going to understand why, and so I need to listen to like what does she want me to do about it? How can I help her not feel less threatened? Like I don't have a better answer than that, but that seems like a good start.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'm on the deep on the Neanderthal scale with you. So and that was the scary part about this is like I don't know myself how I'm supposed to do these things, let alone so how do you get on and talk about something with, I mean, without a full disclaimer every 30 seconds to be like, I have no idea what I'm saying here. I'm trying to figure it out. But I think part of it is like even the protection, and she mentioned in the comment, the military and law enforcement used to be aware of surroundings. And like you said, I think it was before the call. You mentioned someone about a bear, like being the bear and a deer, and I like that because like the men are the bears and the women are more like a little bit more like deer. Like they have flight or flight, and but they're not really weapon centric, which we think we are, even if we're not. And but like I think I don't know how you teach someone to be respectful to somebody else. And that's really what this is like if I'm walking on the sidewalk and I switch spots with my wife to get her on the inside of the sidewalk, the little thing, but in a way it's respect to her to show that look, I'm willing to step in front of the bus for you, right? Like
Mhm.
but but I don't know how you teach that um necessarily. And if I don't know, men we have to be beat over the head quite a few times to maybe get some of these things ingrained in us. And I think having these conversations is actually really great for me because I'm selfishly I'm going to take something from it.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
me too. I think that was the whole point. Like we're not experts on this. We're trying. Like what I was hoping to do accomplish is just to model like, oh, I don't understand this, and how do I what needs to happen for me to understand how to respond better and to be seen as an ally and actually and help
Hmm.
change cultural narratives of like somehow either that these threats aren't real, like the stats tell us the threats are very real, Um, or, how do we change, lend voices to people that are clearly complicit in violence towards women and children um like yeah, it's we're I that's what I think when I read so much in response to the rape category started on all that news a year ago or
Hmm.
a month ago, like I feel like I feel complicit in not doing anything, but I didn't really know what to do. Like I felt intimidated by the whole topic. I still do. I feel like I'm still very much steep on the learning curve. But if nobody's willing to put themselves out there and say, okay, what do we need to learn? How do we do better? How do we change some cultural attitudes? How do we get men's voices involved in these topics and, and so that more people hear different perspectives? Yeah. So thanks. I really appreciate you being willing to come on and have a conversation about a hot topic that's not very comfortable.
No, and it's not. And like my one of my first reservations was like, I don't want two dudes to go on here and mansplain all about how women should feel safe,
Yeah,
because they
absolutely.
like the goal for me was like maybe some of my brothers that I don't know out there will be like, well, there's guys talking about this, and it's okay to like maybe it's okay to be vulnerable and share something that is uncomfortable and talk about rough stuff. And I mean, there's a lot of people that are doing really amazing stuff in the community and around the community that that point towards uncomfortable things. But this is kind of one of those where it's like, yeah, I think we all could learn how to respect our partner, either way, really. It goes, that's a two-way street. Um, I just saw Lois commented, I've learned to never ignore my intuitive sense. I usually regret it when I do. And I guess like just reading that, I was like, and that should be my desire to never ignore mine or my wife's or my daughter's or my son's intuitive sense or my mom or my sister. Like if somebody else has an intuitive sense, why do I think, again, I'm going to go to pride. Why do I think mine is so much better than, than their, like, no, I got this. Like, hush, right? And that's not really a great look. So
Yeah, I think that's been the lesson. Like your deer sensing that you had an arrow queued up. We've never had the arrow shot at us. We're never gonna know that. We're never gonna have that cue in. And
100%.
so then like we're bringing this like my risk assessment says there's no arrow around. Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's it feels like a good starting point. Like, okay, I'm not going to understand this, so let's lean into the information that is
yeah,
made available. That there is a risk here that I don't can't detect,
yeah.
but somebody else has that ability, and that's our partners, and acknowledge it and respect it, and act on it as they see fit. So,
It's a step. It's a
yeah,
step. Cool.
awesome. All right, well, we're out of time. Thanks so much, Mike, and
Thank
thanks
you.
everybody for joining. Hopefully, it was helpful for anybody that. And we apologize for our continued ignorance. If it has, we're disclaimer that we are still learning. So,
Yeah.
okay, really appreciate it. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you.